brief introduction to functions. A function is a named code block. And here's the definition right here. We can call this the sayHello function. Functions are another form of program flow. When we call a function, the function gets executed. Now, this is very similar to what you saw before when we called built-in functions. For example, we might have called exit or input or round. Those functions are really not that different from the function that we defined in sayHello. Look at that definition on line 1, a def. And then inside a block, we have a print statement. Def is another kind of block statement, and we looked at if, elif, and else before. Now we're looking at def. And what def does is it defines one or more lines that are part of the function. These one or more lines will get executed when the function gets called. And we're calling the function in two places in this code, on line 6 and on line 9. You can see that line 6 and line 9 look very much like function calls, and they are, in the same way that we might call len or exit. I might call exit. Now look at the syntax between exit on line 5 and sayHello on line 6. They're the same, aren't they? They just use different names. Also, another big difference between exit and sayHello is that exit is a built-in function. That means that Python already recognizes it and knows what it is when you call it. But sayHello, that's what we call a user-defined function. That is, you yourself defined it, and when you call it, it'll get executed according to your own specifications and design. So let's read this code from top to bottom so that we can understand what's happening when we call a function. First off, the function gets defined. Now, lines 1 and 2 don't have any effect until the function gets called. Yes, Python does check for syntax, but when it starts executing your code, it's actually going to begin on line 4. That is, it's going to load sayHello first, get ready for you to call it, not call it yet, and then start on the non-function code, that is starting on line 4. So Python reads line 4, it prints starting, it then goes to line 6. At line 6, it's going to jump up and run the sayHello function, which just consists of one line, that is line 2, print hello world. Then, after executing line 2, it will jump back to line 6 and move on to line 7. So at the point of line 6, we're now asking Python to execute the sayHello function, which means it's going to jump up to line 1, then go to line 2, and then where's it going to go after line 2? It's going to go back to 6 for completing the function call and then to line 7. Now it's a little confusing to say that it goes back to line 6, but I'll explain that in a moment. The way to think of it is this: 4, 6, 1, 2, 6, 7. Again, it comes back to line 6, but it's really just finishing up, and I'll explain that in a moment. Then it prints line 7, on to line 9, and here's your quiz question. Where does it go after line 9? Well, we're calling sayHello again, so it goes from line 9 up to line 1, 2, then back to line 9, and then onwards to line 11. Let's run the code and see. So we see starting, we see hello world, we see ... because we did a little print here. Then we see hello world again, and then done. So let's run through the line numbers one more time. At the beginning of the execution, Python will store lines 1 and 2 as a function, but won't execute them yet. So the first thing we're going to see is line 4. So here's the line numbers that we can say are executing when we call this function. 4, 6, 1, 2, back to 6 and then 7, 9, 1, 2, back to 9 and then 11. Again, you may ask, if I'm calling line 6 and it means calling say hello goes up to 1 and 2, why does it come back to 6? I'm going to explain that in a moment. Really, you can kind of say that the first time we get to 6, it's going to call the function, jump up, come back, and it's going to come back to where we called it and then move on to line 7. We'll see why that's the case in a moment. So you may want to go back and listen to my line numbers again to verify that you understand what's happening when we call a function. It's important that you understand that when we get to line 6, it means we jump up to line 1 and then line 2, and that after we get to line 2, we're back to 6 and then on to 7.